Sometimes doing the right thing means doing the harder thing. Hey, I'm Father Mark Mary with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and this is Ascension Presents. All right, are you willing to be inconvenienced for the gospel? Are you willing to sacrifice for what you believe is true and right and just? Honestly, I asked you that question. You're like, Father, like, who do you think I am? Of course I'm willing to sacrifice or to be inconvenienced, at the very least, for my beliefs and for the gospel. But are we? In the little things, does this authentic, sincere belief and desire, does it pan out in our actual actions? Because we know what we like and we like what we know. And like this idea that like we have certain patterns, we have certain behaviors, we have certain tastes, and we have an inertia to keep doing those. We know them, we like them, and it's actually quite difficult, especially at the pace that we're moving these days, to make behavior changes, especially at the beginning. It takes a while to get over the inconvenience. It takes a while to push back and redirect our inertia to reform habits. And this is kind of the conclusion of essentially a three-part mini-series here. We talked in the first part about like the fundamentals of Catholic morality. The second one, last week's video, we talked about cooperation with evil and the reality that sometimes we're not going to be able to avoid cooperating with evil in some material sense. We talked about, right, that sometimes, just because of how the world works today, sometimes we're not going to be able to avoid this remote material cooperation with evil, or it would be kind of an excessive burden to constantly be doing research on these different companies, to be driving across the country instead of flying across the country because we can't find an airline that supports only good things. But nonetheless, there are opportunities and there are moments when we realize that some good we're consuming, or some store that we're buying from, or some service that we're using, also in part of their kind of work or their network or their donations, is doing evil. There are these moments for us to discern and to ask the Lord, like, should I keep using this service? Should I keep buying from this restaurant or this coffee store? Or should I take a little time to discern, to reflect, to pray, and to maybe find another store or another coffee shop, etc. Last week, we kind of honed in on the famous coffee shop that financially supports Planned Parenthood, which does abortions right, but also is pretty vocally and aggressively like not promoting and working against a generally Christian worldview. And the proposal was this, it's like, okay, your cooperation is going to be really remote material cooperation. Most people are going to say it's permitted, it's not sinful to buy your coffee there. I kind of countered with, yeah, okay, but like something in our life has to be different because of abortion. Can we find another coffee shop? And I use that one because it's pretty obvious, and one could certainly counter like, well, why are you picking that one fight? There's a whole bunch of other services, things like that to look into. And my encouragement to you is to look into them, do it. And I do believe there are some good pro-life websites out there that lets you know some of the leading companies, which are very kind of aggressively supporting, at least materially, abortion. But for example, if you were convinced last week that you should find a new place to get your coffee, and maybe again, you do a little research, okay, find like this mom and pop shop or this other little store, like there's no evidence that they give money to support the ongoing, killing of innocent children. Still, to make the jump, to make that change is not going to be easy, especially in a sustainable way. Why? Because it's hard, because it's inconvenient, because it requires sacrifice. But that's what we do as Christians. I have a friend who teaches like young kids dance, and one of the signs in the dance studio is, we do hard things here. And I was just thinking, like, maybe that wouldn't be, a sign, like on the entrance of the church. Like, we don't come there to do hard things, we come here to worship. But couldn't you see for like the exit of a church that says something like, we do hard things out there, all right? Because wouldn't that be consistent? We're called to sacrifice. We're called to pick up and carry our crosses every day. We're called to be faithful to the gospel and the truth and the good, even when there's a lot of momentum and a lot of pressure, and society as a whole is going a different direction. My brothers and sisters, we are in the business of doing hard things. We're called to make sacrifices and to be inconvenienced by the gospel. And we're following the one who became deeply inconvenienced and sacrificed everything for the truth and for our salvation. So my brothers and sisters, just a little check. All right, do a little time. Is the Lord inviting you to some sort of change? Particularly some sort of inconvenience or sacrifice to avoid an ongoing remote material cooperation with evil. And then pray to the Lord, Lord, this is going to be hard. This is going to be difficult to actually do in a way which is sustainable, because I like my Frappuccino flat white mocha thing from this place, and I go and get it every Tuesday afternoon. It's going to be hard to actually go somewhere else and to not be having that anymore. But you are capable, especially with God's grace, to do hard things. Like Jesus poured himself out, became man, died on the cross, and poured out all of his blood for love of you. You can get your coffee somewhere else, right? And I thank you so much for your sincerity and genuineness, knowing that you'll take this to heart and you'll pray to the Lord and you'll allow him to show you the next good, best step, even if it's hard. And may God bless you. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Remember, we are pilgrims on this earth. Somos peregrinos, poco a poco, little by little. Vamos a llegar. We're going to make it. Peace.